to the degree that you are willing to face yourself is to the degree that you will master life and business. And what happens in times like this, right, where there's this time like the pandemic, what happens is it removes the illusion of time.
Welcome back to the Balance Boldly podcast for ambitious women in business and a few brave men. I'm Naketa Thigpen, your host and balance and relationship advisor, partnering with you to change the narrative so we can amplify intimacy within and across your relationships, and you can have the freedom, flexibility, and confidence to thrive in work life and in love. You guys know we are deep-seated into season 18. Season 18. Kicking this amazing episode off, I have brought to you such a special gift and light in the world. I am so excited to have this opportunity to share a moment with someone who is so connected and rooted to truth. Her truth, your truth, our truth, because truth is, as she said, which I love. And you'll understand more about that when we get talking. Look, I'm so excited. I can't even talk. I would love to introduce you to Mia Hewett. She has co-owned and operated a 7-figure business, is an international speaker, and a world-class business coach. Mia is the founder of Aligned Intelligence, a methodology that removes all blind spots, fear, anxiety, and self-doubt, leaving you feeling free to be me. Can you imagine feeling like that right now, especially with all that's going on in this new normal in our world? That's why I think she is the perfect gift for you. Her Aligned Intelligence methodology allows her clients to stop secretly struggling and live in alignment with their dreams so they can scale to 6 and 7 figures the fast way. Mia Hewett, welcome to the Balance Boldly podcast. How are you today?
Oh, so great. I'm so happy to be here with you. This is going to be so much fun.
So much fun on so many levels. So you and I were having an amazing conversation prior to just kind of getting started and getting grooving. And I loved your example of truth being similar to gravity. Would you share that with everyone before you kind of introduce like what you do in the world?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it really comes from when I was growing up, there was so many people's opinions. Like everybody had this different opinion. Like we grew up poor. So like all these people had this different opinion as to when I would ask, well, why are we poor? We're really good people. And why are those people rich? I would hear all these different opinions. And what it did was it caused me to realize, wow, why can so many people have so many different opinions about something? Like they were never the same reason. And it really caused me to want to know the truth. And so what in finding and seeking the truth, like, well, what is the truth then? The truth is awesome because what truth is, like gravity, is gravity just is, right? So what I mean by that, truth just is. So it doesn't matter if you're a 4-year-old little child or a 66-year-old woman. If you step over a 3-story balcony, you're going to feel the impact of gravity. Yeah. And that's what I mean by truth, because truth at its essence transcends all time, culture, religions, right? It doesn't matter the context because it just is.
Yeah. No, I totally get that. And I aligned with that visual and that experience of gravity at the same time for when you're stuck in someone else's truth, someone else's expectations of what you should do, which is why I feel a lot of people, just humans, women probably more than men, but on the human experience, we get stuck in other people's truth of who we should be, what we should do, where we should go, or where we're not capable of going, and that whole feeling of not enough, right? Yeah. That comes up, and it limits us from being able to do what you teach so many of the people that are connected to you to be able to scale and get an alignment. So I would love for you to share like how you got to discovering your truth and kind of maneuvering through whatever those old expectations of yourself were, whether they were from yourself or from other people, and being able to be in this space now where you can feel so light about life.
Yeah, that's a great question. Really, really great question. And it's all inside of mastering the fundamentals, right? So, to speak into that, what do I mean by the fundamentals? There is, in order to win any game, let me put it in this context. If you're going to win the game of, let's say, football, you have to really understand the rules of football. So if you can't win a game that you don't know you're playing. So you can't play if you're in football, but you really think that the rules are soccer. It doesn't really work, right?
Mm.
So the game of life and business is very much this way. If you first have to understand the fundamental rules, like you've got to first understand the universal laws and how to win the game. The second part then is once you understand the way life really works, not how you've been taught it works, then what we have to do is understand how we work as an individual, as a human being. Like, how do we process our emotions? Most people, like oftentimes what I've found, and I'd love to hear how you've seen this, is that most of the times somebody will come to me and they'll come to me for business and they'll think that they have like the wrong strategy or they just need something in business. And the truth is that there's Google,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's
Mm-hmm.
never really that whatever they're coming to me for, it's never the right problem. And I don't mean that in a judgment.
Yeah.
It's because it's in a blind spot of theirs. So what I mean by that is it's inside of that it's not the problem that they think they have, because the biggest thing that I see in helping understand how we function and then how to function with the universal laws is we are not taught as children how to process our emotions,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? So oftentimes, like, it's really learning how to process your emotions and learning how to self-govern that is the greatest thing you could ever master, to master life and business. Because it's through, like, if we think of emotion, like the emotion, the energy that moves through, what happens to us as children is we feel these things, and then because we don't have a role model on how to process them, the emotion gets stuck. Well, if we think of just like relate it to health and nutrition, when we eat, we process our food, we poop and pee.
Mm-hmm.
But with emotions, we don't know how to move through and process them. Have you found that to be the case as well?
1,000%.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is, when you think about when you're a child, for not all parents, but most
Mhm.
parents do what their parents did.
Right.
Some parents try to do the opposite, right? But most parents do what their parents did. And when a child is having an emotional reaction to something, the first thing they'll say is, be quiet, hush
Right.
up. Right? Like you're taught to quelch everything, to stuff it down. And I
100%.
see that a lot. So most of the clients I work with are usually between 35 and 55 on average. There are some outliers,
Mhm.
obviously, and
Mhm.
they're at this 40-year-old state trying to figure out what to do with all the things that are bubbling up right now that they don't even
Right.
understand where it's coming from. Why do I feel so out of control? Why
Yep.
do I feel so enraged? Why do I feel so anxious about everything?
100%.
All that stuff is bubbling up. So you are dead on, Mia.
Yeah. I mean, it's so true. And my heart goes out to everybody because, in my family, my mother, she had four girls. None of us were planned. So she, I always tell people it's kind of like, there was an old woman who lived in a shoe, had too many children and didn't know what to do. So all of us were like kind of a bother,
Yeah.
right? And so we would piss her off quite often. And the way she dealt with it is she would stop talking to us
Mm.
for days. Now, I can tell you that the interesting thing that what we don't realize, and I don't mean this as a judgment to my mother because she
Of
was
course.
doing the best she could with
Yes.
the information she had at the time. Her mother did it to her. It was just
Mm-hmm.
passed on from generation to generation. But why I say this is that when we are when you're talking to your parents and they're not, and you're the person that you think is God, right? Because you
Mm-hmm.
think your parents are God as a
Mm-hmm.
child, and they won't respond, they won't even acknowledge you. You you can begin to feel like you don't exist.
So
Like, you
true.
don't matter, you don't exist. And what happens to us, no matter what the childhood experience you've had, when we don't know how to process our emotions, we either feel like we either wallow in them, or we feel completely controlled by them.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so then as adults, what ends up happening is we then begin to try to, because we still don't know how to process those emotions, we begin to compensate by trying to avoid, deflect, not feel, go numb, control, hide. And so as adults, our drug of choice can be different. For me, I working all the time, a high achiever,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
For some people, it's always buying things, trying to fill that emotional void that way. Some people, it's overeating, right? Always eating food. Or for some people, it's like they need constant validation, or excess alcohol, or whatever it is. And again, there's absolutely no judgment. But what I've found is that the very first thing that I would love to tell everybody, and how to go from surviving to thriving, one of the seeds, right, that you beautifully are putting this into seeds, is the first thing that I'd love to offer is that I want everybody to understand that in order to move from feeling controlled or wallowing in their feelings to being able to process their feelings, is the first thing is we have to let go of thinking that there's something wrong for feeling.
Right.
Because I was taught in my family that if you showed any kind of weakness, or if you cried more, then my father gave you the belt.
Mm-hmm.
So in my family, to express emotion, like if you expressed emotion, you got it worse. And I know that there are many people who, as adults, feel this way and feel trapped. I cannot tell you how many times on a daily basis, until we literally heal them and release this, that will people, when they first come to work with me, start apologizing for crying.
Yeah. Yep.
Right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Mm-hmm.
So we have to learn, the first seed is we have to begin to let go that there's something wrong when we feel. The second seed that I would love to give people is we have to begin looking lovingly at all the parts in our mind that fear has taken hold.
I love that.
We
I
want
love
to begin to look lovingly. See, fear actually isn't a bad thing. This is actually where I would love to shed some truth and light on what, about fear. Fear is actually really normal.
that.
It's a wonderful thing to know that you can feel fear, in the sense that you're in tune to survival. If you need to know if your life is at risk at that moment, to do something about it. But fear gone unchecked, right, without being valid through truth or fact, it can lead to overreacting, to making poor decisions, right? So it has us feeling stuck, stopped, stagnant, or just, making decisions that are not really, really great for us. Have you found that as well?
1,000%. I'm
Yeah.
like, you can't see me. And for those who've been listening to Balance Boldly podcast for a while, you know that we record this audio only. So we don't necessarily have the pleasure of seeing each other in the moment. And I'm like a bobblehead per
Yes.
usual, shaking my head like, yes, honey, yes.
Yeah.
You're 1,000% on board with everything. Like, we know everything we do is either through love or fear, but we
Mm-hmm.
assume that because we're moving in fear, if that's your truth in the moment, that it's necessarily bad, and it's not. There's so many layers to why we
Mm-hmm.
do that. And I relate
Mm-hmm.
to what you said about suppressing your emotions, or else the consequences are higher. Our family,
Mm-hmm.
well, my family was definitely beyond dysfunctional, lots of abuse and trauma and all of those
Yep.
layers. And it was absolutely hush up before I give you something to hush up for.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. I feel you. That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And so that next seed would be then to give ourselves permission to process our feelings.
Yeah.
Give ourselves permission to process. So what would that really look like, to process our feelings, right? That I think that is just the most valuable thing that I could give people during this time, is how to process your feelings. So the first thing you want to do, if we could break it in steps, would be the first step is just what am I focusing on? So writing down what you're feeling and just acknowledging whatever you feel. So our feelings are valid, even if they're not true.
Mm-hmm.
People often go, what? But that's what, but it's true, because you can feel a certain way, like you really feel that way. And when you give yourself permission to feel and be heard, even if it's not true, meaning like, here's how we can separate the truth from the lie. Because what we're going to look at in order to see if it really is true, it's definitely valid because you feel it. But the second step is, what am I making that mean? Like, what am I focusing on? And then what am I making it mean? You see, because when we change the meaning we're giving what we're focusing on, it literally then shifts our entire emotional system, right? So it will allow us to see the truth from the lie.
Yeah. Now, so here's one of the challenges, right?
Mm-hmm.
Playing angelic advocate.
Please.
I'll be one of your new clients coming in the door that's definitely rooted with a lot of old narrative and old story, and
Yeah.
coming to you to unthread those things. So
Mm-hmm.
when you ask me the question as the new client coming
Mm-hmm.
in, what meaning am I giving to that story of we'll just pick on something that's relevant for right now that'll probably be relevant for all of 2020 with the way the global pandemic is affecting a lot of entrepreneurs.
Mm-hmm.
Those who may have not had more than, let's say, 30% of their business virtual,
Mm-hmm.
and prior to this moment. And they didn't have someone like you to coach them through, which I know that you've done this as fact,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
to help your employees and your team members kind of convert to online prior to this, to be able to get through that learning curve before
Mm-hmm.
it got really noisy in the virtual space. So as a,
Mm-hmm.
a newbie, I'm coming to you to unthread that, and you're asking me what's the meaning behind what I say as my truth is. I don't think I can be heard above all this noise. Everyone and their mom
Mm-hmm.
is out here in the online space right now, giving quotes and memes, and just doing all the things that people are
Mm-hmm.
doing when they're not really sure what to do. They kind of
Mm-hmm.
look at what everyone else is doing, and I say, well, my meaning is that I'm not I'm not popular enough. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
strong enough. I'm not loud enough to stand above, all these other noisier entrepreneurs that are in the, let's say the, I don't know, shoemaking space, that are
Yeah.
also selling shoes, as an example.
Yeah.
Because Zappos is taking over right now, something that's
Sure.
a
Sure.
behemoth. So
Sure.
my meaning is rooted in my own narrative. Um,
Sure.
you know what I
So
mean?
no, it's beautiful what you're saying. So there's a couple things, right? So I'm always looking at it from two perspectives. One,
Mhm.
as far as how business really works, how life really works, right?
Yeah.
How do you really make money? And then how do you function as a human being?
Hmm.
Right? So those are, when we can marry the two, when we can understand how we function as a human being and know how to self-govern, to function at our highest level. And then when we understand the way business works, when we bring the two together,
Mm,
that's when, things that people call miraculous happen to my clients all the time.
hmm.
But not because there's something special about us, but it's because we understand these fundamental truths. So like an example of that is, there was a guy who just came into my front end. So what I do is, before I really go into business with someone, like before I really get into business with people, I have them come through my front end process where we basically help them stop being a prisoner of their own mind.
Yeah.
So I heal that piece first. So I heal the trauma first, so that it frees the emotions and then it frees the mind. Then, but then those that want to stay with me for a year, and I'm going to show them how to build 6 and 7 figures the fast way, I have about an 80% conversion. I have 80% of my people go on who, free their minds, go on and I allow me the honor to help them build incredible businesses. The reason I say that is this gentleman who just is in my front end right now, he had one session, and inside of me showing him the truth, separating the truth from the lie, he was able to go and close a $250,000 deal. Now, he hasn't even gotten to my back end.
Oh, wow.
Now, this happens so normally all the time. It's such a normal thing, because when people understand, so here's what I taught him that he really got, that changed his entire paradigm of what he was thinking. And it was just this one thing for him that really did it. But what I taught him was the difference between what a true decision really is, and what is when you think you're making a decision. You see, what I see is there is a huge discrepancy between what we're taught in a society is if you just are aware of something, that's enough to get a result.
It's
and
not.
Right. And it comes from our education system. So we're taught, if you memorize this and you recite it back, you can get an A. Well, in business, it doesn't work that way. In business, it does not work that way. In business, how it works is, what has to happen is you actually have to, awareness is just the first step. You actually have to live it, right? Like all the way in and through you, mentally, emotionally, and physically. So if we apply that to the ability to make a true decision, anytime you have not gone there mentally, emotionally, and physically in acting from only that decision and never looking back, consider you have not ever made the decision.
Right. No, I
Do you
get that.
see? So you have to go all in. And what he got inside of me explaining, like, this is the real difference. So Martin Franklin, who's a billionaire that I had the pleasure of working with for, a little while, he was incredible at this. The way he went from a multimillionaire to a billionaire is he had to make a decision, and he had to basically bank all of his millions into this opportunity. And if it didn't go, he would lose everything. That's all in, right?
Yeah.
So what he did is he said, so what I do, and he said this to me. This is like the most brilliant thing. I learned this a long time ago about what a true decision is from Martin Franklin. He said, Mia, most people, because I had asked Martin, I was a multimillionaire and I'm talking to a billionaire, and I'm thinking, I don't understand how you do this. I know what I'm doing to make millions with 15 employees, but he had 36,000.
Yeah.
So in my mind, I was like, I asked him, I said, how do you deal with fear? And he said, Mia, I'm not going to lie to you. I don't have fear. Now, you have to understand, in my mind, I was like, you've got to be kidding me. I've studied this shit, right? Like,
right, exactly. That's
know,
what I'm thinking.
Right? There's fight, flight, or freeze, What
exactly.
are you talking about? There's an amygdala in the back of our brain. I know all about this. I have studied this. And he was like, Mia, I'm not going to lie to you. I don't have fear. You see, the way I see it is most people can't make a decision. And I said, tell me about that. And he said, well, here's how I see a decision. He said, and then he shared this example where he was going to have to put all his millions in. He said, and so I took the critique, meaning he looks, what I'm going to kind of decipher what he does. He looks at reality and takes the feedback. So he's not in a perception of his reality. So he looks at reality. He took the feedback from people he trusted to show him the feedback of the truth in the decision. He trusted his gut, and then he went all in, which means he never allowed his mind, his emotions, or his actions to be different than his decision.
That's interesting. So he wasn't, to put this in context for those who are listening, he didn't just put his money in the pot in that particular example. He said mentally, physically, emotionally, I am completely seeing myself as if it's already done.
100%. And that's where I coach from. So every single one of my people have to understand that principle when it comes to creating a result. Results don't happen because you try. right? That's why when Yoda said, do or not do, but do, there is no try.
Right, right, right.
Because that's what he's pointing at, is that is not a true decision. So you can, what I said to a woman yesterday, she, had a call with me, and she's about considering coming into my front end. And I said to her, the best thing you could ever do is decide, yes, I'm going to do this, or no, I'm not going to do this. Not because of me. I have no attachment whether you do it or not, because this is for you.
Right.
But why you suffer is because you don't make a decision. The suffering comes from you saying you want something, but not willing to truly go all in on it to have it.
That is so
That's
powerful.
why you suffer.
Woo! Jeez, that is so powerful on so many levels. This is a conversation that I hope everyone listening is sitting down and taking notes. Of course, you'll have the show notes as well. I think I'm going to go a little further with this in many different layers for your episode, Mia, because I feel like this was 3 episodes in one, in terms of the teaching, the practice, and the growing that is all occurring because of the nuggets that you are sharing based on your personal and professional experience. That is so powerful on so many levels. We have a lot of people. I have a small intimate group called Selfish, get more of what you want. And because I really believe that if you get a little bit more selfish and be more intentional about being selfish, to take care of yourself and fill up and do more of what you really want, then you can do the selfless work in the world without regrets and without feeling like you're in this space of indecisiveness. And inside that small group of, maybe 100-ish people that are there, often one of the things that come up is about not being able to make a decision. I'm still waxing, I'm still waning, I'm still not sure. There's so many risks, and they sit in this, I'll use a word that you used earlier, this wallowing, right? This wallowing space that really just creates toxic energy around you. And there's no judgment, to your point. This is a judgment-free zone always.
Right.
But it is an observable fact that there's this toxic energy that's being like swirling around you when you're wallowing, and your vibration, your energetic vibration, is coming further and further and further down. So you're, whatever you were attracting, that the laws of the universe were created to be able to maneuver for you and bring forth, you've kind of pulled yourself away from it because you're pulling yourself back. And then we have on the other side of that, Mia, we have the people, and I'll put myself in this because I am definitely a recovering addict, addicted to stress as a high achiever, right? Like that was my hiding space, was school and education and certification, the blah, 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 right? And in that addiction to stress, one of the things that I rewarded myself with is quick decisions. I said, well, I'm not going to be someone who sits in this place of undecidedness because I saw my parents and my guardians constantly being undecided. I wanted to be 75% different than what I saw. So I went to the other extreme of Mia called. I like Mia. Mia said, Naketa, give me $50,000. Why, Mia? Just because. No particular reason. Just because. And not, I'm picking on something really silly. But it would almost be like, all you had to do was make me feel better than I felt in that moment. And I'll be like, quick decision, done. I'll figure out how to get it to you, even though we don't have it. And I would move mountains to make sure that I can help my friend Mia, but wouldn't necessarily make those quick decisions for something that I wanted to move for myself. Right?
Exactly. No, I totally feel you. That's exactly right. So when we grow up in an environment and we're looking, and I know you know this because of the trauma work you've done. So how I like to explain it is, children grow by an emotional bond from their caretakers, or, like their parents, or, could be a teacher or anything like that. And when that emotional bond is broken, when that trauma first originally occurs and the bond is broken because something happened that they didn't even know was possible could happen, when we think that, like, oh my gosh, who I am must not be okay. Like there must be something wrong with me because why did that happen? So we don't know how to process the emotions we're feeling. What we do is then we think that who we are is not enough or not good enough. So we hide who we really are. And then we take on an act of whatever it is we made the decision, well, I must have to survive by doing it this way. So in your case, when I hear that, it's like, so the role you took on is that people pleasing, like I can't be, I have to be for others to be okay. Right. Where like, and I can relate to that one because that was the one that I took on, where my older sister took on the rebel. Right. She became the defiant one. Like, oh, you think, I'm not okay? Let me show you how not okay I really am. Right. And I took on the opposite. And so the fascinating thing is not one is right, one's wrong, but what happens is both are ineffective because it doesn't really allow you to then receive what it is that you're really asking for. So you can only do it for other people, but you can't do it for yourself, right? And so what I love about being an entrepreneur is it's the fastest way for you to see yourself or face yourself.
Come on, listen. This is going to be you
preaching,
mama. You are preaching. Talk about exposing truth. Yes.
Yeah. Because to the degree that you are willing to face yourself is the degree that you will master life and business. And what happens in times like this, right, where there's this time like the pandemic, what happens is it removes the illusion of time. There is no time. So going back to your other point of when people just wallow or they're waiting, that's an illusion. So time is actually a human construct. It's not truth.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as a past. Point to it. Where is it?
Right.
It doesn't exist. It's just a way that our parents said to us as if that it was a place or a way to compartmentalize an experience that happened. But the truth is there's no past and there's no future. Who's ever seen it?
Right.
So the reason we suffer during these times or any time is when we are either concerned about a future. So in other words, we're trying to control something we cannot see, or we're reliving a past experience because we've never learned how to heal or process that emotion.
So true.
So the only thing that's real, those are both perceptions of reality, and they are not reality. You see, the cool thing about Martin Franklin, who became a billionaire, is he somehow understood what reality was. So the first seed, another seed that I would love to give people, is you have to, in order to make really great decisions, become really awesome at accurate decision making, you have to know the difference between what is a perception of reality and what is reality.
Right.
And so when we don't know the difference of that, because perception means it's what you're making it be, but it's not truth. Right now, right? So the media is very important to understand this. That's why I don't watch the media. I am informed. I'm not a Pollyanna. So where I go to get my information is not going to be from the news. I would recommend everybody only check the CDC, which is the Center for Disease Control, because they're the only ones that are giving accurate information. The news is completely designed. The way they make money is that it is based on eyeballs, on advertising. So they're going to dramatize things really big in order, and I'm not saying that this isn't affecting worldwide, so don't get me wrong, but they're going to shed the light on the 4,000 that died or 5,000 that, and rather than the hundreds of thousands that recovered. They're not going to tell you about that as much. Like it's going to, so I prefer, like, again, what's reality? If they were to really weigh this out to the amount of people thriving based on, to the amount of people that are actually healthy in the world compared to the people who are sick in this pandemic, if we put that in an algorithm, it would barely show up as a bleep on our screen.
So true.
But we are, because, and just another point of that, the truth is a person dies in a car accident every second.
Mm-hmm.
Now another one died. And now another one died, right?
Yep.
But because we don't have that coming through our news feed every day of like that, it doesn't take away our focus and make it we're not focusing on all that. But it doesn't mean that it's not true that happens every day, that people die every second. But when we add to this, and so that's where I'm like clearing away the truth from although valid that we feel this way, we feel like things can feel like it's out of our control. But the truth is, you have absolute power. You don't have control over what's happening globally right now. So if I would think of that more in terms of, it's kind of like the seasons. You can't control winter.
Right.
And if you try to control winter, you're going to suffer, because there is no controlling winter. You have to allow winter to be winter, but you must know that after winter comes spring. And if you see the opportunities, right? If at this time you're looking for, what does this crisis make possible? What does it make possible? And then you focus your mind as a tool to really focus in what makes possible. This is how we make the most amount of money in this season, right? Like an example of that is, there was a fine dining restaurant. And of course, when this hit, there's no fine dining happening.
Right.
They immediately shifted. And then they went on to take some of their best sellers, like gourmet burgers, and they created a pickup, like a drive-through type of area where you could just pick it up, right? The person would leave it in social distancing. They would just, kind of, and then go get their food. After that, when that became an issue, they started delivering. So what is it that you're doing? What is it, even if your market right now is not making money, what does this make possible? What can you, right, in reverse engineering what you do in doing it in a different way? Like, how can you increase your cash flow by delivering what you do in a new package, or find a new deliverable?
Yeah, I 1,000% agree with that.
Right? That's what I would give as the best thing for someone to actually be able to grab that seed, this opportunity, focus it in a way that would really truly serve them. Like, for instance, right now, I do, my stuff is live. I do an online course, and my course is virtual. I coach it live, virtually on Zoom, but that's it's an event. Event planners, if somebody with a larger list, I give people $1,000 for people who are a fit for what I do, $1,000 a referral fee. Like right now, there are people who have large lists of people that could partner with someone who's doing well. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then those partnerships would create a whole other income stream that they didn't even know was possible. So looking in your areas to see what is it that you could offer or become a part of, that somebody else, the areas that are doing well, like education, wellness, insurance, staples, marketing. I know one of my entrepreneurs owned a brick and mortar art business, and we instantly shifted. Before all this stuff happened, we shifted online super fast. And one of the cool things in this environment is the government is allowing, they used to do these adult night classes with art, right? And they used to serve alcohol. Well, right now the government here has allowed them to deliver alcohol.
Oh, that's a big market.
Do you see what I'm saying? Like, she's like, I never knew how many people are buying bottles of wine. They're delivering art supplies, and they're delivering the bottles of wine in their care packages of people who ordered it. She just sold 90 people virtual training online in art.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
That was creative. It's not that she's doing what she does differently, the way she's doing it is different. And
100%. That's what I mean by that. How can you take something that you would normally do? She would do that in her store.
mm-hmm.
Well, how can you take that deliverable and package it differently, reverse engineer, find new deliverables that back it up. If you are a restaurant and you can't sell anything right now as a restaurant because people can't come to eat there, okay, but how can you take that food that may be some of the best ones and offer delivery of that food, or back it up even more? What about meal prepping?
Yes, which is
Right?
huge. Yes.
Like, what can you do that would really, offer? It's still in what you do. It's just doing business in an adaptable, flexible way with the season that we're in. Because, like all seasons, this too shall pass.
Absolutely. I have to say, I know that we went over and I want to respect your time, but God, you are giving so many gems.
Awesome.
So many gems. And one that I would love for you, if you can,
Sure.
share. You said adaptable, so that immediately cued my brain to something that you
Yes.
shared with me
Mm-hmm.
pre-recording about the animal. I'm trying not to give it away.
Mm-hmm.
The animal that's the most adaptable. Could you please
Yeah.
share that?
Absolutely, absolutely. So a long time ago, I've lived in South America. I grew up in the jungle. They had never seen a white girl before. They did not know what I was. They kept thinking I was an albino. They kept touching my skin and my hair, and so the funny thing is, I've got to be really adaptable.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I can see things through a lot of different perspectives, not just one, because of that. So I'm very grateful for the experience I had as a child that way. But that being said, I remember a girlfriend of mine said to me, "Oh my gosh, you're like the strongest person I know." And back before I understood how to really, really have life go, really go with life and thrive, I said to her, no, I'm just the ultimate survivor. I'm like the coyote, which the National Geographic had done this episode on the coyote because it is the only animal that can literally adapt its entire food source, and its environment will completely change to the environment around it. So that's why they can be found in New York City, which is the example that they gave in the National Geographic, because they're the only animal that are 100% adaptable, where all other animals will just die off if they lose their food source and so forth. They won't adapt. And I think that that's such a great thing to remember about how adaptable we really are.
Yeah.
The key to being adaptable is letting go of control.
Mm, that's
Letting go
hard.
of control and going all in, because you know this, and I know all your listeners know this as well, but success at its source is simply faith expressed in action.
Yes. Ah! Do you hear me? Do you hear me snapping my fingers?
Yes.
Oh my goodness, Mia, with all the wonderful, amazing, and beautiful work that you do in the world, how do you give yourself permission to pause?
Hmm. Well, I love that. To me, the permission to pause, I have this thing that I love teaching people called the power of the pause.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that really helps, especially like when you were describing, like, I would just make those quick decisions as long as it was for someone else. The power of the pause is such a great one to help people really slow down so they can speed up.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So being able to know how to do that. So the power of the pause is really about hitting the pause button. This is what I do. And before I start my day, I'm actually going to like literally let go of my mind.
Mm.
And I'm going to literally take the big picture view, and I live from a vivid vision. So I have a vivid vision is what I teach, is how to create the life you want. You live from a vivid vision, and you live it and know the details of it, so much so, like it's so really in the deliciousness of what you see, what you touch, what you taste, what you feel, that it just feels so good to be in this vivid vision. Like you just don't even want to come out of it.
Yeah.
Right? And um, the power of the pause, of being able to let go of your mind and really feel for what it is that you really want and what that creates. And then speaking into that is what allows me to feel so connected during these, uncertain times, how to feel connected to yourself, how to ground yourself. And the fastest way to do that, to let go of your mind, is if you take your two fingers and you put them out to the sides of yourself. So you're looking straight, but your two fingers, you can move them slightly up so that you can see them in your peripherals. So you're looking straight, but your fingers are, you can see your fingertips and your peripherals. When you do that, it's keeping your head straight, but seeing your fingers and your peripherals, you have to come out of your mind to feel.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the fastest way to really ground yourself into what's really true.
I love that. That is beautiful. And very tactical too, like a very tactical and tangible experience to do. You said you do yours in the morning.
Yes.
And I believe that a lot of our listeners, especially our ambitious women who have that running mind that's constantly going and they have a hard time turning it off, could also probably add that practice to their evening, their kind of power down for the
100%.
evening, right?
100%. And even like 3 times a day, I recommend doing the power of the pause a minimum of 3 times a day for like 5 minutes. It will just completely ground you, because what it allows the person who is using busyness to not feel.
Come on.
Right. What it does for that person, by the ability to slow down and like really realize that everything counts. So when they learn to slow down, that's how they're going to, and really make accurate decisions on what they're focusing on. It's how they're going to speed up the fastest. So it allows them to be able to, the biggest mistake I see is entrepreneurs making is they make framing problems as statements. So like an example is, let's just say they say, I'm not good with money, right? Well, what happens is, as soon as they frame it as a statement, then it tricks your brain into thinking that's a fact, not a problem that just needs a solution. So the fastest thing you can do when you hit that power of the pause button is to think on what you're focusing. What are you framing a problem as a statement? And then just shift it to, because there is no such thing as problems. All problems are just unanswered questions. All you have to do is shift it to, how might I be good with money, if that's what I was saying in that moment, so that I can have whatever it is that I was thinking I wanted. And then do a brain dump. Pick it's usually like you'll write down about 3, and then like out of the 3, you'll have one that is like your big one that you're like, this is what I need to be doing, and you need to take action and go implement that right away.
That is amazing. You are such a gift, Mia Hewett. Really, truly. Like, I know that you probably hear thank you often, but from the 4,000 plus downloads that we get a month from our little small community that I am so proud of, that has been growing organically on its own, I thank you for them. And I reverberate that we are so grateful that you carved out time today to share the many, many seeds with us today. I know I've learned from them, and I'm holding on to them. And I'm also going to continue to share this for months and months and months on end, because the gift is something that I really feel like is priceless, including your vulnerability to show up fully in yourself today. I really am grateful for you.
Thank you so much. It's been so much fun to be here with you.
You are amazing. So how can people connect with you and just get more of Mia Hewett?
Yeah. Well, for just your people, I would love to give them a gift of my free book. It's not available free anywhere else, so you'll post it in the show notes so that they all get the password they'll need to get it. But it's called Meant for More: How to Stop Secretly Struggling and Become a Force to Be Reckoned With. And it's the book that I wrote this book. It's in story format so that people can really internalize it easier and not leave it as a concept. But it's the book I wish that somebody would have given me a long time ago. I mean, if somebody would have given me when I was 18, it would have saved me a ton of time, a ton of money. and a ton of energy of doing the wrong things. So it just gives you the fundamental truths of how life really works and how you really work as a human being. And it has you really be able to then know how to thrive instead of survive.
I love that. Thank you for yet another gift
Yay!
with the Meant for More. You are such a blessing. And I just can't say it enough. I am honored for your presence, and the mutual shared safe space that was created today is absolutely something that is going to be the highlight of the end of this month for sure.
Oh, lovely, beautiful. Thank you so much for having me.
You're awesome. Balance boldly, listeners. Oh my. You ambitiously bold and brave people out there. I love you to life. And I am so grateful and honored that you also carved out time today to share this space and time with Mia and I. I am grateful for her showing up fully in herself, because you know that I always stand in. It's not about just showing up. You got to show out and you got to stand in your power. And Mia did all of those things today. So I want to thank her again, and I want to thank you for carving out this time. As usual, if you loved what you heard, don't be stingy. Make sure that you subscribe, rate, and share so we can help ensure that other ambitiously bold and brave have access to the valuable life, love, and business balance tools that are shared here today, especially this episode with all of the seeds that were planted that I know will grow such a wonderful, sustainable, and profitable harvest in your whole life. So make sure you are not stingy and you share that. To continue to get more from me, you know, you can follow me at Ask Naketa anywhere, IG, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, you know where to go. So go create your balance and create your joy, but remember, do it boldly.